Good evening. Welcome to the August 14th, 2017 meeting of the Marquette City Commission. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you please rise with me and say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, if we could have the roll call, please.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Cambenzi?
Here.
Commissioner Conley?
Here.
Commissioner Frazier?
Here.
Commissioner Plord?
Here.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Baldini?
Here.
And Mayor Campana.
Here. Commissioners, we have the agenda in front of us. Would someone care to make a motion? Commissioner Frazier?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Is there a second? Commissioner Plord?
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That passes 7-0. Next we come to announcements. I just have one. We have advisory committees for the city. We have 20 openings on 10 committees. These boards and committees function to study, suggest, and advise the city on topics of concern within the city. If you'd like to volunteer to serve on one of these committees and you have the time and you're willing to help the city, we would appreciate you contacting either the city manager's office or one of the commissioners and volunteer to be on one of these committees. You could help make a difference and make this a better city. Next we move to boards and committees. Tonight we have one appointment. That appointment would be Bridget LaPointe Dunham to the Parks and Recs Advisory Board for an unexpired term ending 1/29/2020. Do I have a motion to approve this? Commissioner Reynolds.
I move we appoint Bridget LaPointe Dunham to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board for an unexpired term ending January 29th, 2020.
Is there a second? Commissioner Baldini.
Support.
Comment, any?
None.
Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That also carries 7-0. Next we move to public hearings. We have one tonight. That public hearing is to consider the rezoning of property at 621 Fisher Street. City Clerk, if you could give us the background, please.
Thank you, sir. The Planning Commission was directed to make a recommendation to the City Commission regarding the potential rezoning of a portion of the municipal property located at 621 Fisher Street that is zoned industrial to be zoned general residential as part of the land acquisition process for the US 41 Hospital Access Project. The property currently has both industrial zoning and general residential zoning, and the purpose of the rezoning is to provide residentially zoned land to the neighboring property owners who will be relinquishing a portion of their property adjacent to North 7th Street for the expansion of that street right-of-way. On July 11th, 2017, the Planning Commission conducted a public hearing for the rezoning request and made the following motion. It was moved by Jay Carlson, seconded by A. Andres, and carried 6-0 that after review of the application and staff file review/analysis for 02-REZ-07-17, the Planning Commission finds that the proposed rezoning is consistent with the Community Master Plan and hereby recommends that the City Commission approve 02-REZ-07-17 as presented. Fiscal effect none. Recommendation, conduct a public hearing and concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation to rezone the property at 621 Fisher Street. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to open this public hearing. If anyone wishes to address the Commission at this point on this item, now would be your time. You have 3 minutes. We need name, address, city or township. Does anybody wish to address the Commission at this point? Does anybody? Seeing none, we're going to close this public hearing. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Plord.
I move that we concur with the Planning Commission's recommendation to rezone the property at 621 Fisher Street.
Would there be a second? Commissioner Frazier?
Second.
Comments? Commissioner Plord, any?
Just that this is part of the plan, part of the construction, and it's just a follow-up, something we need to do to finish the business.
Commissioner Frazier, anything? Anybody else? Okay, vote. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That carries 7-0. Next, we come to our first public comment of the evening. Public comment is the time when citizens may address the commission, or they may reserve time to speak to one of our agenda items coming up further along. We'll give you 3 minutes at the front podium. We need name, address, city or township. We're going to open public comment. Does anybody wish to address the commission at this time?
Fred Stonehouse, 875 Oriana, Marquette. I note item 5 on the agenda is a discussion of the fire codes. I have 2 suggestions. Suggestion number 1 is take that discussion and take that operation and put that in with all of the other city codes that will be looked at by the outside consultants you've hired and the process you'll set up within the city. I think it's too important to do in this type of a forum. I think you really need to drill down. You really need to understand it and all the implications that it has to the city of Marquette. And that would not happen quickly and not happen in the detail it should in this type of a forum. The other operation that concerns me is that when I just looked online and for that agenda item, there is 0 information provided to the public. Quite literally, it's a blank item. So I think it's very important that the public have a chance to look at those fire codes, to understand them, to see the discussion and the recommendations as made by the staff and administration. That's not there. So I think while it's not illegal, what is proposed doing, apparently, I think it is not correct because the public deserves an opportunity to look at that, to chew on it, and to provide their input to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt Lutenberger, 1406 Garfield Ave here in Marquette. I guess thank you for everyone who came out to vote in this past election. I officially got 50 votes out of every precinct, so thank you to the 50 that thought I was worthy enough to take one of these seats. To everyone else, good luck in the next November election. You guys have your work cut out for you. For the 2 sitting incumbents, you have a budget plan that you have to justify and decide whether or not the next couple of discussions. So here's kind of what I've realized. The incumbents in this town tend to get, you got 6 times more votes than I did, Mr. Baldini. There's no way I can come back and do that. The last time I ran, I got literally half or a third of what Mayor Campana and Ms. Reynolds got. There's a point in this town when we have great ideas. We have a lot of things that could work, but apparently we need to know your private access numbers. I heard last time coming up here that you got a lot of emails and a lot of phone calls from people. Those seem to be longer discussions than what I've had to have. And so maybe I chose the wrong forum to try to improve the city of Marquette. Maybe I chose the most public method and that scared some people. But in some way, the same group of men and women, at the same time, Ms. Campana and Ms. Cambenzi and Ms. Reynolds, you both voted no against the $100 million investment in electricity in this city. In the last 10 to 15 years, the discussions that have been made here and elsewhere have basically charged the city residents $100 million for electricity. And then at the same time, these exact same people, you included, are the ones who are saying, we don't know what we're going to do in the future to get this money back. So I'm asking the city of Marquette residents to look into it and say, why should we hire the same people who put us into this mess to try to find a solution to get us out? And at the same time, again, I got 6 times less votes than you did. Nobody wants to hear what I have to say, all right? I get that. Nobody cares what some outsider from downstate thinks or wants to say. I just want to say that next month I'm going to a conference in Southern California, where literally they're talking about making electricity out of aluminum powder the size of a canister. That's the technology that's coming around. And you have a power plant that needs refurbishing. You have a hospital that is vacant. In some way, when you guys say, what is the solution? It's looking right at you. And frankly, you could care less. I mean, Mr. Campana, you didn't know I wanted to speak twice in 2 different meetings. No offense, it's busy, but I literally was ignored twice. Mr. Baldini, you didn't know I was sitting on the other side last meeting. So these are things that I have to acknowledge. And now that my time is up, my time is up. Thank you, everybody. Have a great summer.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would anyone else like to address the commission? Seeing none, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Commissioner Frazier,
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
would there be a second? Commissioner Reynolds,
Second.
comments? Don't see any. Because there's a resolution, we need a roll call vote. City Clerk, please.
Commissioner Cambenzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Conley,
Yes.
Commissioner Frazier,
Yes.
Commissioner Plord,
Yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baldini,
Yes.
and Mayor Campana.
Yes. That carries 7-0. Next, we move to unfinished business. We have 2 items on unfinished business. First item is Superior Hockey LLC Office and Storage Space Lease Agreement. City Clerk, could we have the background, please?
Thank you, sir. Superior Hockey LLC has requested the City Commission consider leasing office and storage space at Lakeview Arena. Staff has worked with the City Attorney and Superior Hockey LLC to draft a standard lease agreement which provides for the terms and conditions of the request. The monthly payment shall be $1,358.33. The term of the lease is 5 years, with the ability to renew by mutual written consent for up to 5 additional years. It should be noted the annual rental amount may increase at an amount not to exceed 20% of the previous year's rate. This agreement would replace the existing agreement entered into on December 12, 2016. Currently, Superior Hockey leases the southwest corner of Lakeview, which is a 951 square foot area with 150 square feet of storage. This lease is for the space in the center of the south face of Lakeview, formerly occupied by the Engineering Division and United Way prior to that. The new space is 1,221 square feet of office space and 818 square feet of storage space. Superior Hockey LLC will operate with both leases for 1 month while they renovate and move the store, after which time the lease for the current space will be terminated. This lease was reviewed at the July 31st, 2017 regular meeting and moved forward to tonight's meeting. Fiscal effect, the Lakeview Arena Fund will receive $16,299.96 in revenue for fiscal year 2017-18. Recommendation, approve the 5-year lease agreement with Superior Hockey LLC for office and storage space at Lakeview Arena per the terms of the agreement. Alternatives as determined by the Commission.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Baldini.
I move that we approve the 5-year lease agreement with Superior Hockey LLC for office and storage space at the Lakeview Arena per the terms of the agreement attached.
Is there a second? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Any comments? Commissioner Baldini.
Just briefly, the description that was read provides all the details we need, and it's a better location for them, and I'm glad that we have them there at the Lakeview Arena, providing the service for the individuals who use it. So, thank you.
Commissioner Frazier.
Good service for all the teams there. Also, good use of the old engineering firm rooms. So, good avenue to help out Lakeview.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Cambenzi.
I just have a question. We're coming up into budget session time where we will approve new rates. Does that mean that we will be seeing a rate increase in the next couple of months for them?
Well, excuse me,
John's here to answer any more detail, but basically, in our upcoming budget, we are proposing a $2 per square foot rate increase for these lease spaces. It's going to depend on whether or not that's approved through the budget process as to whether or not it actually happens. The leasee, the signer of the lease, is aware of that potential change.
Just out of curiosity, what would that increase be at $2 a square foot?
So that increase would be 20%. So right now that's $10 a square foot. The increase to $12 a square foot would be 20%.
Do we know how many square feet they have?
Yeah, this lease would be for, let's see here, be going to 1,211 square feet for office space and approximately 800 square feet for storage. And the storage would be at a rate of $6 per square foot after the budget season, if approved. And then it currently is at $5 a square foot.
Okay, I just want to make a comment that I hope, this, I guess a few years ago, we actually raised the rates so much that we kind of chased both renters out. It was the Marquette Community Foundation as well as the United Way, and I hope we don't do that this time. It's a unique location. This seems to be a business that fits well, and I just want to make sure that when we visit this, that if, I guess, the terms are not agreeable to the renter, I'd like to see it be probably less than 20% going forward, especially with the owners of this business putting all of the renovation work in and paying for it themselves.
Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That also carries 7-0. Our second and last item under unfinished business will be a discussion on the NFPA Fire Code 1, I believe. We don't have background on it, but the city manager will start us on this. City manager.
Thank you. First of all, there was no background in the agenda because it was purely a discussion. I will set the background now. Back in June, early June, we had an action item in front of the commission to potentially approve the NFPA fire code. If you recall, we had a rather lengthy discussion with a few members of the public present. The item wasn't tabled, but I was directed to bring it back in 6 months, which would have been the middle of December. Since that time, I've had discussions with the mayor and other commissioners that suggested that they might want to talk about it again sooner than December. So what I'm asking tonight is whether or not the commission would like me to bring it back sooner than December. The possibility exists that we can schedule a work session if that's necessary. Both myself and the fire department feel this is an important item, and putting it off till December is not in the best interest of the community, but certainly we understand the direction from the previous meeting. So I only wanted to give the commission the opportunity to discuss it again tonight, either direct me to continue on the same 6-month path, or to bring it back sooner than December in the form of a action item in front of the commission or a work session, or both. And the chief is here to answer any questions.
Well, I think we need to have a discussion here. Whether how deep we go, I'm not sure. We would probably take a vote tonight to see if we're going to bring it back for discussion as an agenda item later on. We could follow the format of suspending the rules. Why don't we do that? Would someone care to make that motion? George, just discuss it? So just go, we don't need to do that? Okay, so we just open it up. Anybody care to go first?
I just have a couple of questions maybe or comments. We are going through an evaluation of all of the planning commission. We're appointing the committee, I think it was at the last meeting or the meeting before. And so we're going to be going through some of our own review and looking at this. Secondly, a work session next month in August with all the budget meetings is something else. Is it that much urgency right now? Is there any other development on being proposed in the city? I know the old Trollerhof is looking at it, but that's already done. There's water going there and everything else. Is there any other project that's being looked at in the city that we may not know about, and maybe the planning commissioner or the city manager may know about, that's urgent, that's outside of the extension?
I'm not aware of anything exactly, but I'll let the fire chief respond to part of that question. I guess practicality is part of this as well, and I wouldn't suggest that if we bring it back sooner that it be in between now and the time that we pass through our budget hearing. So it would be probably after that time, maybe mid or late September would be the soonest I would ask that it be brought back. But Chief, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any projects or developments that are coming up right now that this would affect. That's not the only effect that this has, though. It also, we're having problems with doing our fire inspections of local businesses. There's certain things now we're having to just politely request instead of require for fire safety requirements. And so far, we haven't had anybody refuse to do it, but we are keeping track of those, and there is the potential that, you know, if people don't want to do it, business owners, they're not going to have to do it because we don't have any authority to require it anymore. So it isn't just water supply or firefighting access. There's a lot of other things to do with hazardous materials, flammable materials storage in businesses, usage of space heaters. Basically, we can't stop people from using those in commercial businesses now, since we don't have that fire code adopted. And then on the first question of the review of the form-based codes, I'd like to defer to Dennis on answering that part of it.
On the land development code project, I just wanted to note that the fire codes will not be part of that review. That's a separate specialty that our consultant will not be assisting us with. Thank you.
Okay. At our last meeting, we, this went back and forth, and we were left with a lot of unanswered questions. We really weren't sure where we wanted to go on this. So I would like to ask, what do people think about, do we do a work session? Or do we just automatically say, bring it back in September? I guess we're down to, do we want a work session, or do we want to bring it back and debate it at that point? Let's hear some opinions. Commissioner Plard.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think we are kind of putting ourselves on a bad position. I agree with Mr. Stonehouse and his recommendations during public comment. Based on this particular meeting, the public hasn't had an opportunity to take a look at this, but the information has been out there before. The ordinance is available, and we're in a bad position. Agreeing with Chief Davis there, you can't enforce an ordinance that doesn't exist. If we pass the ordinance soon and we need to make a change, we can always make a change. I'm in favor personally of bringing it back as early as possible. I would be in favor of bringing it back on the next meeting for a vote. I could live with a meeting in September, but I think we'd be remiss in a lot of different ways to wait until December. We're asking our fire department to do something they really don't have the authority to do, And then we're gonna say, if something bad does happen, we're gonna say, well, whose fault is that? Well, I'll be honest, it would be our fault, because we didn't vote on the ordinance. We have to give them an opportunity to have something to enforce to protect the city. And in that last discussion, when we had, that we had with this, where it was tabled back to December, there were a lot of things that were important to me that were said in that discussion, including and especially having the ability to fight fires in places where new construction is taking place. And I think one of the biggest tragedies we could allow is to have a new construction take place and have it burn to the ground, simply because we couldn't get in there. Another thing we've seen many times over the last year or so is we talk things over and we talk things over and we talk things over, and I'm not against that, but it does get to a point where we need to take action. And I think with this particular ordinance, we need to take action. We need to get it done. I think the fire department, I think the city manager staff have done a good job of presenting the ordinance in the first place. But if it needs more review, we can always review later. So from my standpoint, I'd like to see it come back to the next meeting for a vote. I'm willing to allow for a delay for the first meeting in September, but I would like to see that and get it done. Give the fire department an opportunity to have an ordinance that they can work with. Again, if we need changes, we can always make them.
Thank you. Commissioner Frazier.
I agree with the fire department and their codes. It wouldn't be a bad idea to give the public some more information on it. I mean, obviously, I know some other firemen, they've said that they've been trying to get people to adapt the codes for a long time. It's kind of been like you should do it, and most people do it, but it'd be good to have enforcement. I would be opposed to a work session just to give, maybe the fire chief could come up with paperwork saying, okay, this is why we need the fire codes, this is how everybody else does it, this is why we should do it, this is how people adapted to it in the past, this is why. Just more information, and people are welcome to come to the work session and listen to all the information. It wouldn't be a bad idea just to get the information out, or even put the information online for people to look at, and maybe a little, heading under the city website or something, so new fire codes are because of so-and-so or something. Wouldn't be bad. Just more information wouldn't be bad, yeah.
Commissioner Conley.
Well, I think this issue is not about the Planning Commission. This is about fire codes, fire safety, and our firefighter safety. If we don't adopt NFPA 1 Fire Code 2015 edition, a business can store propane tanks inside the building. Fire captain on the scene would probably hesitate to send his firefighters into that building if he knew that there was propane tanks going to cook off. It's a lot easier to keep them cold and keep them from catching fire if they're on the outside of the building, but we have no way to prevent that tank storage from being in the inside, for instance. We don't have any way of regulating helipads, so that a business could, if it has a helipad, doesn't have to make sure that any fuel spill rolls out to the outside, rather than accumulating on the fuel pad where it could ignite and cause a serious fire, injuring people. We don't have any way of regulating whether a development has fire hydrants or whether it has an adequate turning radius for fire equipment to go in and fight that fire. Our equipment is large size. We aren't sending little Jeeps in there. We're sending large trucks. So we don't have any way of regulating that. Seems to me the Charter Township of Marquette has adopted NFPA 1 Fire Code of the 2015 edition. Chief Davis, does Chocolate, have they adopted this fire code?
I don't believe Chocolate has any codes adopted.
But at least our neighbor to the west has seen fit to adopt this, so we aren't really being crazy out front and doing something that's totally out there. Our neighbors to the west are requiring their developers to conform to these codes, right?
Correct, they are. And I believe they have adopted the 2012 edition, but it is the NFPA 1 Fire Code. And also, as just a note, the state of Michigan has also adopted NFPA 1 at the state level.
So there you go. It doesn't sound so crazy to me. If we have to get a work session to get this done, I'd do it. I'd just as soon bring it back to the next commission meeting and present it. As for the background information, it was contained in the June 26th agenda that was available to the public when we first considered this, so that information is there. And like I say, we aren't redoing all our codes. We're doing some of our planning, like our community development director has pointed out. That doesn't have to do with fire codes and fire safety. They're leaving that up to us. And I think it's our job to provide for the safety of our citizens and our firefighters. And I don't want to be responsible for not adopting a code. Somebody coming into town, who thinks when they're buying a house, is the turning radius in the cul-de-sac sufficient size to allow fire equipment to come in and put out the fire in my house? So I think we need to look out for everybody and bring this up again, reconsider it, and adopt it. So I would vote for a work session if we have to, if that's the only path to getting this code adopted, but I would like to see it on the next agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Baldini.
If you recall the last meeting where this came up and we had a motion to table, we were discussing about the new development at the ski hill, and it involved water, okay? And now I just heard that it involves inspection for heating in businesses. I don't remember seeing that in that verbiage. So I think you need a work session. The rules we do adopt do have an impact on planning, because if we cannot have planning extension for development and you have to have a water line going to it, not some other, maybe a water tank or something of that nature, then you're not going to do it. So the only development you're going to ever get in town, and I'm not opposed to the fire safety aspects of the fire department and their safety and what they do, but I also think, let's be honest with ourselves. I mean, we heard here from the chief that it also means he can't, I didn't know you can't go in and inspect for, I think you can inspect in any building probably in the city for fire. If somebody calls or a hazard. Matter of fact, I see a lot of heating units in a whole lot of places in buildings. When you go in, somebody's sitting there and they got something on in the winter. But I think there's probably more information on the NFPA than just the water or the turning surface or the turning circumference. So I think we need a work session. The last thing we need is another work session. But I'm not going to vote for something if I don't know everything that's in it or what impact it's going to be. And I do think whatever rules we do adopt will impact the planning of the city, and they do impact the planning of the city. So, but
Okay, Commissioner Cambenzi.
Well, I think those of us that would prefer to have a work session aren't against it, or certainly aren't against safety. We just want to understand it better and make sure that there aren't other ways that we can combat some of this stuff. I do know one of the things that bothered me greatly was how we've allowed some of the road designs to go into the new subdivisions, whether it's for our fire trucks, whether it's for our snowplows. I think that we let some others win in terms of making sure that we have the right standards in there. So at this point, I'm not against it. I'd like to have more information. I guess I'd like to have more feedback from community members. And certainly, I think the last time I said I'd like to kind of see the two codes kind of next to each other, the one we have now, and then if we were to discuss this, what changes are we looking at? And I think that way the community can follow along with us, give us their feedback, and make sure that we're truly being good commissioners in terms of safety. So my vote is for a work session first.
I think what we're looking for is more information before we make this decision. I don't know if we don't have enough tonight. Also, I think we need more information for the residents if they want to get involved. And I'm sure the builders would like to chime in on this because they were very concerned about this possible new ordinance. So we are looking to get more information. So we're kind of boiling it down to, are we going to have a work session and then bring it back, or are we going to skip the work session and go straight to the agenda item? So that's what I'm trying to figure out here. Commissioner Frazier, you had a question.
I would be voting for a work session to get more information, if we could, to give the fire chief some more time to put all this information together, and we could do it. We got budget scheduled all this month, so maybe early September we could do a work session and get some more information, give everybody else, maybe some builders a chance, like to comment, like you said.
Commissioner Reynolds?
Just weighing in for Mike, the city manager's sake. I'd be agreeable to a work session early September and maybe the second meeting in September, having this come back up, because I do agree that it's very important to deal with this sooner than December. But I also kind of, as Sarah said, having two things next to each other would be easier for all of us to digest and understand. So,
Question for the fire chief. If we put this off to a work session, which will probably be not this month, but next month, would that be okay for you? I know you'd like it sooner rather than later, but how late can you go? How much wiggle room?
Again, the only liability is on the city and on the residents. It's not on me, so that's not up to me.
Okay.
I already brought it forward, and that's...
Okay, good. Totally understand. Commissioner Plord?
One thing I'd like to remind the commission is as long as we don't have this ordinance, people's fire insurance is going to be more expensive, especially if they are people are engaging in new construction and not following the ordinance by itself as it's written, whether it's enforced or not. Another thing that I think needs to be pointed out is the National Fire Prevention Association standards are standards across the country, from state to state, from border to border. They're already recognized. They've been out there for many years. They're there to be reviewed pretty much anytime anybody wants to. And I still urge you that, okay, I'm not going to oppose a work session, but I don't think we have the right or the ability. I don't think it's fair on our part to say, yes, we have a lot of work sessions this month because of budgets. We should put this off. If we have a work session, I'm willing to have a work session this month. I'm willing to have a work session this week to get this done. I'd like to see this on the agenda for the end of August. I can live with the middle of September. If I have to, I'll live with the end of September. But I think we're not putting quite enough importance on this as far as fire prevention, and as Commissioner Conley mentioned, the protection of our firefighters and the protection of our citizens. This is something that we need to do. We need to get it done. And I don't think there's that much debate about it. There's not that much to be seen. It can be reviewed. So I urge you, if you decide to have a work session, that we have that work session this month in August, and we get it on the agenda at the latest, the first meeting in September, but I'd like to see it on the agenda the last meeting of August. This is not really something that we can put out. This is something that's looking at the safety of all of our citizens and our firefighters, and you're asking people to pay more in insurance than they really need to have, than you really need to do, simply because we're taking our time with an agenda or an ordinance that we've already seen the information on. And one of the other reasons why, that's one of the other reasons why we're talking about it right now. We've seen the information, and the urgency is there with some of us. The urgency needs to be there with all of us.
Thank you. Would anybody disagree with me if I was to ask that we have a vote on a work session? I didn't say when, but I got a feeling we're going to have a work session. Anybody disagree with me? Commissioner Conley.
Well, I would rather that we ask if we can put it on the next agenda, and if that fails, then you can propose a work session. How's that? Because I would probably oppose a work session if I thought we had a consensus that would just take it straight to the city commission agenda for the next commission meeting.
I just get the feeling that people want more information that could be brought forth in a regular agenda item on the next meeting. Like, the only way we're going to get that is a work session. Commissioner Baldini.
Well, I get back to my original point. I think that if we wait to have a work session in September and we take some action in September, housing and fire rates are not going to go up. we also asked if there's any major project that's going to go to the planning commission between now and even the end of the year. We know that there's a project at for Viridian at the Tirolahof. Nothing else is on the drawing board, and it's not going to come up that quickly. And because remember, we got started in this talking about turning radiuses, water lines, things of that nature. It's now much more encompassed, and I have no way of agreeing or disagreeing with that. If it is, I missed that in the actual application of what the specificity is in that. So I would like to have a work session, and I would be very surprised if anything between now and, I mean, the suggestion that we've been enforcing these rules, I've been told, and I don't know what all those rules are, and I can't believe that our businesses or people in the homes are going to say, aha, all of a sudden we heard that the NFPA is off, and so therefore let me go out and do whatever I'm going to do to jeopardize my safety and my business. I mean, if the commission wants to vote and wants to vote on it right away, but I would suspect that the majority of the commissioners here don't know all the details of what's in it, nor obviously does the community. That's why I'm suggesting we have a work session.
I would like to hear more from the fire department. I'd like to hear more from the builders. Now, I'll suggest this. I'll get you next. I would like someone to make a motion that we have a work session, first part of September, and then go to an agenda item. That's what I'd like to see. I would like someone to make that motion, but first Commissioner Conley has something to say.
We're talking about a national code. This commission isn't going to sit and pick that apart. We don't have the expertise. And we aren't going to take this part out and this part out. This was a code that was adopted nationally, adopted by the state of Michigan, adopted by your friends and neighbors to the west. So we aren't going to sit here and nitpick little details in and out of it. That's not for us to do. We can accept national standards.
I know how the two to my right want to go on this, but I don't know about the rest. Commissioner Baldini.
I move that we have a work session in early September on this NFPA to be scheduled by the city manager, and then with a work session obviously means bringing back some motion to the commission.
Would someone second that motion? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Okay, we're going to vote on that, but I would like a roll call vote because I can't distinguish votes. City Clerk, would you call it, please?
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Cambenzi,
Yes.
Commissioner Conley,
Okay.
That's a,
Yes.
well, this is for a work session.
Commissioner Frazier,
Yes.
Commissioner Plord,
I also said I would not oppose a work session, so I vote yes.
Commissioner Reynolds,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Baldini,
Yes.
and Mayor Campana.
Yes. Okay, we have a 7-0 vote that carries. So the city manager will schedule a work session as soon as possible and put it on the agenda.
Yeah, the motion was for early September, so I'll make sure it's early September. Right, Chief? I just want to make sure you're there, that's all.
Okay, we're going to move to new business. 6 items on new business. First item is the Father Marquette Park Accessibility/Improvement Project, contractor selection. City Clerk, could you give us the background, please?
Thank you, sir. The city received a Michigan Department of Natural Resources Trust Fund grant to provide access improvements to Father Marquette Park in 2015. The grant amount was $140,000, with the Beautification Committee providing $60,000 in local match. Progressive AE/Sanders and Chapsky were awarded the contract as the prime professional at the regular meeting on March 28, 2016. The project was advertised in July 2017, with bid opening on July 27, 2017. The city received 3 bids, each with a bid alternate for concrete versus asphalt. The bids were as follows. Primo Construction, Inc., bid $380,442.56. The alternate bid, $368,107.76. Waben Construction, Inc., $279,393, and the bid alternate was $276,147. And UP Concrete Company bid $142,025.12. Bid alternate $141,925.12. Staff and Progressive AE/Bill Sanders have reviewed the lowest bid and determined it to be qualified. The state of Michigan has approved this bid process and awarding UP Concrete Company the project, pending City Commission approval. Fiscal effect, the Beautification Committee has committed to fund 30% of the project cost, or $60,000, as the local match to the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund grant. No city funds will be used with this approval. Recommendation: approve UP Concrete Company as the low bidder for the Father Marquette Park Accessibility and Improvement Project in the amount of $141,925.12, with bid alternate for concrete versus asphalt, and direct the city attorney to prepare a contract. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Baldini.
I would move that we approve the UP Concrete Company as the low bidder for the Father Marquette Park Accessibility and Improvement Project in the amount of $141,925.12, with bid alternate for concrete versus asphalt, and direct the city attorney to prepare a contract.
Is there any support? Commissioner Reynolds.
Second.
Comments? Commissioner Baldini.
The issue is not new to us here because the committee working on Father Marquette was here. The Beautification Committee has been here before the commission. And I'm very pleased to see that one of the contracts came in where our staff thought that it really is appropriate, and the other bids are rather substantially above that, maybe reflecting what's going on in the area. But this is part of that Father Marquette. We heard from our public arts and public places, that they were looking forward to this project also because this is going to be part of their work in public arts display. So I'm happy to see this is here, and I'm glad to see that they came in at $141,000.
Thank you. Commissioner Reynolds, anything?
No, I'm just glad this is getting done. I do have one question. I don't know if it's for the city manager or if you can pass it along to staff. I'm just curious if this is this, do you know if this is going to start this year, or are we talking next year?
John can answer that. I make him come, so he might as well talk.
Yeah, the intent is to begin as soon as possible. So.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Frazier.
I'm glad to see this happening. It's going to happen this year or next year, but I'm glad to see that accessibility is a good idea, because I was on the PIPAC committee when they developed the new playground for accessibility, and I think it's a good idea. Accessibility for everybody is a good idea.
Commissioner Conley.
I have a question about some of the numbers. I'm in favor of the project and will vote in favor of it. But the grant amount was $140,000, and then the beautification would kick in up to $60,000. So there's $200,000 worth of funding available. Is that how I'm reading this?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's a $200,000 budget for the project.
And this construction bid is for $142,000. How about the other $58,000?
Yeah, so the way that works is the state is going to kick in their 70% of whatever the final cost is. Now the beautification committee's already committed $60,000, so if there's that comes in roughly $42,000 on this particular bid. So if there's overages there, they could potentially spend that money on the project or things above and beyond what's in the scope at this time.
I was going to ask, were there other costs like, say benches or some other kind of like public art or anything else that would be covered within these this $200,000?
Yeah, so this what's in this bid is primarily getting the pathway up to the top and creating the viewing areas and some of the concrete that goes around the statue. Some of the other things that have been discussed that were not part of this project would be lighting on the pathway and some irrigation to some of the plantings within that. So the beautification committee does have some interest in doing a few things beyond this, so it might be a good opportunity for that to happen.
So we can use some of the funds that are left over from the total grant and the match for other things, landscaping, lighting, benches, public art, things like that. Is that right?
Kind of. You can't use the state dollars that are left over because they're only going to pay 70% of what the bid is. But if the beautification committee wants to stick to $60,000, they could use those extra funds toward other
Okay, what
items.
you just said was they'll pay for 70% of this $142,000 bid. Thank you. I guess that was a clarification I didn't know I wanted, but now I do. Thank you.
Question for
Yes.
John. The DNR Trust Fund has been known to sometimes look at amendments to projects, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, they have. Yeah.
Yeah, so this one is coming in under what they originally anticipated spending. So I suspect somebody here is going to have a chat with them and see if we can. Thank you. Okay. I just wanted to mention that the staff did review, because when you see these numbers, you say, wow, what was left out? But the staff has done their due diligence, and they feel very comfortable that the bid at that price does cover, and the quality is also covered. So, thank you.
Commissioner Plord?
I just want to say congratulations to John. Who got the grant?
Community Services wrote the grant, so our staff, and then it was written to the state, and they awarded it.
Congratulations. Good job.
and
I'd love to see grants come to the city of Marquette. It's well done.
And just, I'd like to say just a big thanks to the beautification committee for their initial proposal on this and for their matching dollars and all of their efforts. They've been at every single meeting to make this happen. So it's a great thing for them to be involved at that level, and it's a good thing for the city.
John, I agree with you. We should be thanking the beautification committee. They raised $60,000, which is a pretty generous gift, basically, for the city. So, thank you to them. Any other comments? We're going to vote on this. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? Carries 7-0. Second new business item of the evening. Purchase of property from Ricky Bissonette. City Clerk, background please.
Thank you, sir. As a result of the preferred alternative being chosen for the proposed transportation system improvements related to the relocation of the former Marquette General Hospital, various properties or portions thereof were identified as needing to be acquired for the project. City staff has reached an agreement with Ricky Bissonette for the purchase of a portion of his property at 601 Fisher Street, and the city attorney has prepared the attached purchase agreement for commission approval. Included in the agreement as consideration is the conveyance of adjacent city property to allow the property owner enough land to reconstruct a garage, as the portion of property required for the road project will require taking the land his existing garage structure is positioned on. Fiscal effect. In lieu of a cash payment, the city will be responsible for paying contractor invoices for damages, including the construction of a new garage and related expenses up to an agreed-upon amount of $42,000, which payments will be made and funded through the Brownfield Plan for the DLP Marquette General Replacement Hospital. This plan was approved by the Marquette City Commission on October 27, 2014. Funds for this project were obligated in the plan for this project. Recommendation: approve the purchase of a portion of property at 601 Fisher Street from Ricky Bissonette per the terms of the purchase agreement. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Plart.
I move we approve the purchase of a portion of property at 601 Fisher Street from Ricky Bissonette per the terms of the purchase agreement.
Would there be a second, Commissioner Frazier? Commissioner Plort, any comments?
Just to say again, this is ongoing business, and this, if you're interested or wondering where this is about the roundabout construction at Fisher and Grove at the bypass. We need to finish that up.
Commissioner Frazier, anything?
Keep construction moving.
Very good. Commissioner Cambenzi?
I just wanted to make a comment. I'll be voting no on this one, and number 8, just to be consistent with my votes all along from September of 2014, with the overall financial impact on the city of this project through the agreement.
Anybody else? Any comments? Okay. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed?
No.
That carries 6-1. Third item of new business. Purchase of property from Jan Johnson and Linda Johnson. City Clerk, could we have the background, please?
Thank you, sir. As a result of the preferred alternative being chosen for the proposed transportation system improvements related to the relocation of the former Marquette General Hospital, various properties or portions thereof were identified as needing to be acquired for the project. City staff has reached an agreement with Jan Johnson and Linda Johnson for the purchase of their property at 518 South 7th Street, and the city attorney has prepared the attached purchase agreement for commission approval. Fiscal effect: an agreed-upon cash payment of $290,000 will be made and funded through the Brownfield Plan for the DLP Marquette General Replacement Hospital. This plan was approved by the Marquette City Commission on October 27, 2014. Funds for this project were obligated in the plan for this project. Recommendation: approve the purchase of property at 518 South 7th Street from Jan Johnson and Linda Johnson per the terms of the purchase agreement. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Frazier.
Say we approve the purchase of the property from Jan Johnson and Linda Johnson for the approved amount.
Okay, and would there be a second? Commissioner Plard?
I second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the purchase of property at 518 South 7th Street from Jan Johnson, Linda Johnson, per the terms of the purchase agreement. Any discussion? Commissioner Frazier.
Thanks, Ron, for getting the paperwork done.
Commissioner Plard, anything?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to point out that we were in a position to acquire this property by eminent domain. And we were able to have effective negotiations with Jan Johnson and Linda Johnson to reach a good agreement. So I want to thank the city for their efforts. I want to thank city attorney especially. I don't think anybody on this panel wants to take any property on eminent domain, but it was something that we had to look at, and that was part of it. But this is a part that we had discussed in the past, taking eminent domain, and we don't have to do that. So I'm happy to see this come about.
Thank you. Comments? Any other? And another thing we should point out is, had this went to eminent domain, there'd be, litigation cost that would go on for who knows how long. And then to bring the road developers back would be expensive. So in the long run, this is advantageous to the city. We are saving money. Any other comments? Seeing none, we're going to vote on this. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed?
No.
That carries 6-1. We move to the fourth new business item, which is the amended scope of services for the new hospital transportation project. City Clerk, background please.
Thank you, sir. The city has been tasked with additional design for the transportation project based upon direction from the Michigan Department of Transportation after issuing the city a permit for the project. The design work required the assistance of our consultant, DLZ Michigan, Inc., and consumed all of the hours remaining for their assistance on the project. Given the nature of this project and the possibility of more challenges from the state of Michigan, staff is requesting approval of a proposal to cover additional costs that may be incurred when assistance is needed. Fiscal effect: these costs are reimbursable under the Act 381 Brownfield Plan for the DLP Hospital, not to exceed $10,000. Recommendation: approve the proposal as presented and authorize the city manager to execute it. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Motion, Commissioner Baldini.
I move that we approve the proposal as presented, authorize the city manager to execute it.
Thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Reynolds.
Second.
Comments, Commissioner
Just a
Baldini.
brief comment. If you notice in the reading by the clerk, the assistant clerk, it was noted that this was something extra that was put on us by the Department of Transportation. This is the second or third time. They gave us the permit for the project, and they've been nickel and diming us. One part of it, I think $700,000. I'm not sure that's nickel or dime. But they've been doing that, and this is another one of those responses that comes in here, and you're really at their behest. They can control the final authorization, so we have to go ahead with this.
Thank you, Commissioner Reynolds.
I
Anything?
was just going to echo what Commissioner Baldini said, because I remember we had this come up a couple months ago, and the city manager said this would be the last time we had to amend the scope, but now the state of Michigan is requiring new things, so that's why I seconded and I'm voting for it, but it doesn't necessarily make me too happy.
Commissioner Gambenzi.
Well, I did have someone call me about this one. I think what they were mad about is that there's only a letter from DLZ. There is not a letter from the state of Michigan, or no further explanation or details on what exactly they need this for. And when that's missing, I think perception can become reality. And I think a lot of people have the perception that we're not being careful enough, or we're not being transparent enough with what the needs are. And I will be voting no on this, but I just wanted to pass that comment along, because as I looked through the agenda, I didn't see anything specific. It was just that we need to do something. MDOT's making us do it, and we need up to $10,000. So that's all.
Would anyone care to address that? Did we get a letter from the state?
Typically, we don't get letters from the state. We get the Department of Transportation has an on-site inspector, several on-site inspectors that coordinate with our staff on field changes that may be necessary. Those then get routed through Keith Whittington, who takes a look at them from an engineering perspective. In several instances, we were dealing with some hydraulic challenges again, dealing with the stream, and we needed to get DLZ to get that done for us. And it's a trade back and forth. The really only paper trail that's on that is the email correspondence between the city engineer, myself, and the MDOT inspectors.
Thank you. Any other commissioner? Okay. All those in favor, say yes.
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 Opposed?
No.
That carries 6-1. Fifth new item. Roadway easement from State of Michigan, which is the Michigan Army National Guard property. City Clerk, could we have the background on that, please?
Thank you, sir. At its meeting on August 8th, 2016, the City Commission approved the 6-year capital improvements plan for 2017 to 2022, which included a Wright Street reconstruction project. The Wright Street reconstruction project proposal includes upgrading the intersection of Wright Street and Lincoln Avenue to a roundabout as recommended in the Lundin Truck Corridor Study. In order to construct the roundabout at this location, Additional right-of-way is needed. The state of Michigan drafted the attached roadway easement, which is subject to approval by the State Administrative Board and the Attorney General. The easement will be granted for the purpose of constructing, operating, and maintaining a paved public roadway and related curbs, gutters, storm drains, and traffic signage fixtures on land that is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, located at 1820 Lincoln Avenue. Fiscal effect: an agreed-upon consideration of $19,425 will be made and funded through the Lundin Road Funding. Recommendation: approve the execution of the attached roadway easement for property owned by the state of Michigan at 1820 Lincoln Avenue per the terms of the easement and subject to state of Michigan approval. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Commissioners, do we have a motion? Commissioner Plord.
I move we approve the execution of the attached roadway easement for property owned by the state of Michigan at 1820 Lincoln Avenue per the terms of the easement and subject to state of Michigan approval.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Frazier.
Second.
Comment, Commissioner Plord, anything?
Well, just to say, a lot of people are looking forward to that roundabout being completed. For all the negative comments we've had about roundabouts in a lot of ways, this is one that people seem to want a lot, and this is part of that. So let's get her done. As Commissioner Frazier has said, keep construction moving.
Commissioner Frazier, anything?
I had an appointment earlier on Wright Street, one of the businesses, and I got stuck in traffic, and I told the business, sorry, I have nobody to blame but myself.
Thank you. Comments anywhere else? Commissioner Cambenzi?
Just a comment that the funding from this is coming from the Lundin Mining Corporation that has agreed to help us pay for the road project construction during this stretch.
Thank you. Seeing no further comments, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed? That carries 7-0. Our last new business item of the evening, the city manager and city attorney performance evaluation process. City clerk, please.
Thank you, sir. The city charter requires the city commission to conduct an annual performance review of both the city manager and the city attorney. Past practice has been to appoint 3 commissioners to serve on a committee to review the evaluations completed by all commissioners and make a recommendation regarding any adjustment to the manager's compensation or terms of employment. The city attorney is paid on a retainer basis, and the amount of his compensation for legal services is approved as part of the annual budget process. Fiscal effect: none by this action. Recommendation: appoint 3 commissioners to serve on a committee to review and compile the city manager's and city attorney's performance evaluations and make a recommendation regarding any adjustment to the manager's compensation or terms of employment. Alternatives as determined by the commission.
Thank you. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Baldini.
I move that we appoint 3 commissioners to serve on a committee to review and compile the city manager's and city attorney's performance evaluation and make a recommendation regarding any adjustment to the manager's compensation or terms of employment.
Would there be a second? Commissioner Reynolds.
Second.
Let me interrupt and say that we did this last year, and it's my feeling again this year that at least 2 of this 3-person committee should be the mayor and the mayor pro tem, only because we spend probably more time with the city manager than perhaps others, good or bad, but to me that's how it is. I am not ready to appoint someone tonight, city attorney, if that's okay with you. That's how I would like to go. I mean, I'll be willing to do whatever the commission wants me to do, but I would like it to be the mayor pro tem, and then I'll appoint someone else in a week or 2. Can we do that? I don't have to do it tonight, do I?
No, but I guess
Unless,
the commission itself could appoint tonight by motion, or you can appoint your own and have it confirmed at the next meeting. I mean,
yes, I would like to do
some
that at the
point-
next, I'd like to appoint the 3rd member at the next meeting, if they'll agree to do that.
And then I think the whole slate has to be approved, because even at the next meeting,
Well, I
your
could
wish
approve
may
it.
not be granted.
We could discuss this, and we could have make that appointment tonight. What I want to do is find out who has a burning desire to be on this committee besides, if it's going to be me and the mayor pro tem. We can have this discussion. Let's have the discussion. Let's go to Commissioner Baldini to start it.
I'd like to offer an amendment to see if the supporter would do it. Maybe we should have said authorize the mayor to appoint 3 commissioners. That way, and I'm assuming, knowing our mayor, he's going to talk to the other commissioners. So I don't know if I made the motion. Commissioner Reynolds, you supported it. I don't know if you would be favorable to that.
If you make an amendment, we have to vote on the amendment.
Yes, yes. Mhm.
So what is the amendment again?
The amendment would be to authorize the mayor to
Oh.
appoint 3 commissioners to serve on a committee.
That's okay. Is there a second to that amendment?
Uh,
Commissioner Reynolds?
Second.
Okay, is that a friendly amendment?
Friendly.
It's an
Okay.
amendment.
Yeah, okay.
Is there any discussion on that amendment? Okay, what's basically doing is allowing me to do this, not the commission allowing me to do this in the future. All those in favor of that amendment say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? That carries 7-0. Now we go back to the original motion with the amendment. Commissioner Baldini, do you wish to carry forth on that motion? You want to keep the motion with the amendment? You want to keep
Well,
that?
the amendment was already made.
Yeah.
So the motion on the floor is that the mayor appoint 3 commissioners.
Okay.
yeah.
And Commissioner Reynolds, you're okay with that? Okay. Discussion on that? Any? Commissioner Baldini, do you have any further discussion? No. The attorney is looking at me.
No, I mean, you can do it this way. I thought there was consensus to withdraw that original motion before it was teed up, but if it's not, then we can vote on this.
I made
You made an amended, you changed the motion
a
in
motion
effect.
to add the word mayor.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was accepted. Now I guess you can vote on the main motion as amended.
Okay. Commissioner Reynolds, you had something?
Well, the only comment I have is that I think when the first time I ever went around with this process, it was kind of cool when we each staggered the terms, like somebody that's done it once, done it twice. So like Dave and I are on the same terms, so I understand like myself not being a part of it because Dave is going to be a part of it. But whoever you decide, it's good to have like different perspectives and different amounts of years. So that's the only thing that my comment towards it.
Good, thank you.
Question?
Okay, we're gonna call the vote. All those in favor of the amended motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carries 7-0. Okay, we come to our last public comment of the evening. Again, it's a time when citizens can address the commission. You got 3 minutes. We need name, address, city or township. We're going to open public comment. Does anybody wish to address the commission at this point?
Fred Stonehouse, 875 Oriana, Marquette. I neglected to do this before, but I'd like to thank everybody out there that supported me on the primary and thank them deeply. And if I should be elected in the fall, I'll certainly do my very best to represent them. Thank you for taking the time to do a work session on the fire codes. This is a big deal. And I would also point out that this is the second time that the commission has dealt with this issue without actually having a copy of the fire codes or any analysis of those codes or any particular effort made to analyze them, how they will affect the big gorilla in the room, which is economic development. For example, parts of that are certainly very benign for the city. We all want good fire safety. We demand it. We all want good fire departments. But if there's sections of that code that would impede us in our economic development, especially as we get to the peripheral of the city, and an example of that would be the campground that went in there, the ski hill, then you need to be aware of it, and you need to be thinking of it, and you need to think in terms of, are there sections of the code that from a hypothetical standpoint could be removed or modified? So you're not buying a pig in a poke. You're not buying something simply because somebody said, this is good, buy it. I sat on this commission for 6 years. I never remember voting for something that I didn't actually see. And that's the situation you've been faced with twice. So when you do your work session, I think it'd be very reasonable to require community development perhaps to do a detailed analysis of what that fire code is, particularly looking at those aspects that affect economic development in this community. Because that's the big gorilla in the room. That's what really we have to look at. Other than that, thank you for the very good work you do, and it is deeply appreciated.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else wish to address the commission? Seeing none, we're going to close public comment. We're going to move to comments from the commission. Commissioner Cambenzi, start us off, please.
Well, yeah, Mr. Lutenberger left, but I'd just like to thank him for stepping up and running, even though he didn't move on to the general election. One thing that I hope he would consider, because we have lots of openings on our appointed committees, is starting there. That's certainly where I started back in 2002. I was on the Arts and Culture Committee with the city. In 2008, I was on the Planning Commission, and then moved to the Charter Commission as an elected official, and then the City Commission. So just because he didn't make it, I do hope that he would consider one of our open appointed positions. Second, I'd just like to thank all the voters for supporting me through the primary with the 109th District State Representative seat. It's very humbling. It was a very close race. Great candidates that certainly pushed me as a candidate while running. So thank you for your support, and certainly thank you to Commissioner Reynolds for her support during my election. And last, I just want to once again commend Gunlock Champion for doing an outstanding job on our service center building. This project literally went through without any major issues. It came in within budget, besides the salt barn. But really, when you have a contractor that is that good, that values labor, that knows what subcontractors how to bring on, it's a perfect example of how a municipal project can go right. So I'd just like to thank everyone involved in that once again.
Thank you, Commissioner Frazier.
I echo Commissioner Kamenzi's. Thank you for all the votes locally, and for everybody, for all of us running, and for Sarah's, trying to step up to the state level. We'll miss you if you get through. But we look forward to everything going on. I agree with her comments about maybe the person running didn't make it through the primary. Start out with one of the city boards. I was on PIPAC, and I know a lot of people that went through the commission. It's a good way to start out with. And just look forward to everything going on, and look forward to a fun budget session coming up. And maybe we might get the December might be here. We had a nice tour put on by Mr. Jones we had the senator, the lighthouse, and the Coast Guard station. It was very informing, very knowledgeable, and Tom Baldini, our official political rep, represented us well.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Baldini.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just very quickly, I also would like to thank the residents of the community for their support in the primary. We have a lot of issues on our agenda between now and the end of the year, and between now and the end of the election. And also congratulate Commissioner Cambenzi. There's a great movie out called The Candidate. And Robert Redford runs for office, and at the end of the movie, he's sitting after he wins. He says, "Now what do I do?" I think you probably have an idea of what you're supposed to do. But I always thought that was a great classic line. Be careful what you want to run for, because now that you're there, you have to deal with it. Also, this weekend was the number of people in town with Ore to Shore, and during the entire week, it was really interesting walking around downtown, seeing the number of people walking the streets, dropping in the shops. It was very, very nice and very encouraging. The eclipse is this Monday during, I think, our budget session. I hope that's not a bad omen, but it is one that's generating a lot of enthusiasm. I think we get about a 70% viewing here, or about 70% of the eclipse, not a total. So thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Commissioner Reynolds?
Well, the only comment I have this evening as a chamber board member, I'd like all of you to come to, I don't know if you've gotten the email, but we have a fowling event on Wednesday evening, which is a mix between football and bowling, and all the chamber members, it's apparently, instead of socials like they do at the Lake Superior Community Partnership, we're doing this different kind of thing. 5 to 7 Presque Isle. Anybody who's a member of the chamber can come, which we all are. There's going to be kayaking, there's going to be beer, there's going to be food, and fowling, which we're all going to experience what that actually means. But it'd be great if any of you could come.
Thank you, Commissioner Plord.
Believe it or not, I have no comments for tonight.
Woo. Commissioner Conley.
This past Friday, we participated in the ribbon cutting for the Municipal Service Center. 81,000 worker hours. Our men and women, mostly from our community, put in 81,000 hours to build that building without an incident or injury. So I think that's really something to be proud of. That speaks well to Gunlock Champion and to the workers themselves, watching out not just for themselves but their co-workers, because safety is a common issue that everyone has to take seriously. I'd also like to thank our engineering and public works staff, because I envisioned a traffic nightmare this coming up this summer, and it really isn't. It isn't that bad. You know, and the fact that it's going to all be cleared out in about 2 months is even better. But driving around is far better than I ever envisioned, and I think that is because there's been some good planning and execution. And I'd like to thank those two departments and their department heads and staff for making that possible for us to get around.
Thank you. I also would like to offer my congratulations to Commissioner Cambenzi on winning her election. Hope she does well in the next election. To the people out there who might be interested, we are having budget sessions starting Wednesday. May not be the most exciting, but it is important, and you get a good insight into what goes on in the city and how it works. You're welcome to come and sit in on them. The first one is at 3 o'clock Wednesday, I believe. Okay. We cut the ribbon on the service center Friday, and as Commissioner Conley says, it is a beautiful building. We're very proud of it. The residents will be proud of it. There's many people to thank for it. They did a great job on time, on budget, no injuries. We have to thank many people, but especially, and I mentioned this earlier, the people of public work, the men and women of public works who had to put up with working in not an orderly arrangement. They're bouncing around trying to take care of things. They didn't have a stable building. I mean, they're just they put out and they made everything work, and we're proud of what they've done. And the city manager has to be congratulated. He's the one that kept everything moving and made sure everything got done. And this has been stressful for everyone. You don't realize it unless you've been around it, but they're all to be commended for what they've done. City manager, it's your turn. I would ask that, is there going to be an open house of the service center for the general public?
Yes, we are going to schedule one here soon. We'll let you know.
Okay.
Thank you for your continued support. The only comment I have tonight is when you pick your evaluation committee, only pick commissioners that like me. Okay?
Do we have any? We are adjourned.